Welcome everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Dare to Dream, turning bold visions into reality. Where today we're diving into one of the toughest yet most transformative aspects of growth, facing the fear of letting go. I'm your host, Victoria Hart, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Denise Rickard. Denise, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Victoria. So good to be back with you and with everyone here. This is so exciting. I love it. And it's like you said, it's a very important topic and it really it shifts a lot and moves a lot when fears are addressed and let go of. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yes, and so, as we know, change can be unsettling, and the idea of releasing what no longer serves us often comes with fear and resistance. Whether it's a job, a relationship, or an old belief system, we tend to cling to the familiar, even when it no longer supports our highest self. And so, in this episode, we'll explore the fears that hold us back and how we can embrace the unknown with courage and trust, opening the door to what's truly meant for us. Now, we touched on this in the first episode, and today we have an opportunity to delve deeper. So, Denise, let's kick off with why is letting go so difficult?
Yes. Well, you can look at holding on in a couple different ways. Like sometimes there's a holding on to something like through the physical body. Some and when I say holding on to something, I'm talking about something that feels comfortable or something that maybe isn't really the best direction or the highest path for you. So there's the physical holding on. So there may be something in the physical body, and sometimes that's like through tension. A lot of times it hits at the solar plexus, so in the stomach area, like you feel like somebody says something and it triggers something, and boom, there's the punch in the stomach, so to speak.
Right.
Um, and so there's we could talk for episodes and episodes about like the whole holding on from the physical standpoint.
Mm.
Yet that is probably the most palpable for people, and they may wonder, why something hurts, or why there's a reoccurring something in the body that's not preferred, let's say. And so that's one aspect. And so in with your original question, why is it so hard to let go? If you don't know the root of what it is, and are redirected to, like, let's say there is something in the physical body that's manifested.
Mm.
It could be that, like, something, you go to a doctor and the doctor says, well, this happened because you ate whatever. They're gonna have a reason. Like, right, there's the scientific reason, not the energetic reason. So the body is one way. The other way is the emotional body, which is another body, or the feeling body, and that is like the emotions are really a flag and a trigger, but a lot of times, if there's no awareness of what it is, what the fear is, then it may show up in a different type of emotion, like um, a fear of um, I'm trying to come up with a good example. Just jump in if anything comes in, but
Well, yeah, what was coming through for me was around, that emotional attachment to other people. And maybe what will others think if I, suddenly change course? What if I let people down? We have a sense of responsibility to others, or an obligation, or a duty. So yeah, that was coming through. And then also when you were talking about the physical body, I was reminded of, the freeze response. So we kind of get frozen because, we're like, oh, I don't know if I want to take that step. And what, as you were describing, that frozen aspect gets locked in our body, and so our energy is not flowing through the body, to enable us even to perceive, things clearly, because we've got this energy block which is keeping us in that freeze, or fright, response. So yeah, that's what I was getting as you were speaking.
Thank you. Yes, yes. And that, and also, like, as you're saying this, as this is coming forward, um, as we're bringing this forth, it's really about like awareness too, right? That maybe there is something that has manifested all the way into the physical body, because it usually starts energetically. It is all energy, but it usually starts outside the body. A situation shows up and then it gets ignored and it gets ignored and it gets ignored. And then eventually the fear starts manifesting somewhere in the body. And it's interesting because with the physical body, it could be so telltale, like somebody having, throat issues. Like I've had clients that have had, when they're not speaking their truth,
Mhm.
they were like, there was a lot of like throat maladies that were coming, like sore throats or losing their voice.
Yeah,
It's, those kind of like, I don't know if you have you had any clients that have had
yeah.
like,
And
yeah,
yeah, the same, like issues around being able to speak, or yeah, losing the voice, or the voice coming out distorted, or other parts of the body, like maybe involving the hips or the legs, like unable to take that step forward, feeling frozen in that spot. And something else is coming through, but it's gone, so maybe it will come back in a minute.
yeah, yeah,
But
that's,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And as people are more and more waking up, and as as you're aware, then you can start like taking a step back, because sometimes like fear does, it can freeze you in your tracks. And so, and I'll get back to that, but so we talked about the physical body, the emotional body, and then there's also the mental body. And so with the mental body, that could be like just belief systems or programs that are just like they're automatic. Like sometimes the mental mind becomes automatic, like because it may have come through this lifetime, in childhood, like, and there is of course keeping, like, our parents trying to keep us safe when we're little, or running away from something. It's like that, the mental mind can really hold on to fears, and then that can play on the emotions and the physical body. So it could be just like usually it's a whole span of things, but it, like, if for one particular fear, of like you brought up at the beginning, that maybe somebody is, you're on your awakening path, and all of a sudden you're seeing things differently. And it's like, if you say something and somebody goes, what are you, are you one of those new agers, or there's some type of judgment, or somebody
Right.
looks, that type of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And we've probably had experience of that ourselves as we've gone through our awakening journeys. And as you were sharing, that I think, yeah, avoiding. So we get the signals that something needs to change, but because we're, in our comfort zone and it feels scary, we just avoid it and avoid it and just push it to one side. And those kind of responses that are perhaps the triggers that then create the physical discomfort. And then it's we think we're in we think, oh, we're safe and comfortable here, and we might have those, as you were saying, the mental stuff, like the stories will come up to say, oh, but remember when you tried to do that thing in the past, or remember that old relationship and it just didn't work out, or we get all those fearful thoughts that are, it's basically our protective personality just trying to keep us in that safe protective comfort zone, which, even though it's called a comfort zone, it's not very comfortable because we're not really thriving and enjoying our life. We're just staying in that kind of survival mode. So yeah, really, really good points that we've brought through today. And so that, I think that leads us nicely into asking the question, well, how do we then identify what no longer serves us? And, how do we know then, is it just a little rut that we're kind of stuck in that just needs some ironing out, or that it is we are being asked to make a bigger shift in our lives?
Yeah, that's a big question. That's another
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 episode.
20 episodes. Yeah, and really, it just, I guess the quickest, the shortest answer and the best starting point, that I've worked with myself and my clients. It's like, if something just feels out of alignment, and really, you what that means is there is something in the physical, emotional, or mental body, because our that's how we use our physicality to know, to navigate right through this life. So the one of the first things is that if there's something that just doesn't feel right, like if somebody says something about a world event, let's say, something in the world that's happening, and somebody has a comment or their own opinion about it, there may be some kind of reaction, like an emotional reaction, or even a physical response that I don't know that I agree with that.
Yeah.
And and then so that's the first thing, right? Is just to listen for the response. And then the next thing is like, you could really keep going deeper and dig deeper. Like, what is it about what they're saying that's not connecting with my truth? And then you can go, it's domino effect, right? You could go, um and sometimes, like, your higher self knows, and sometimes you can hear that voice, and sometimes, you know at times we just block ourselves from listening as well.
Well, I think this is a really key point because, we often think that it's safer to stay with the crowd. And, like you said, maybe we have had that, intuitive hit, or, just that feeling that it doesn't feel true to me. It doesn't feel right. Something feels off. But we, like you say, we might ignore it because, oh, well, everyone else is doing something different, so I'll just suppress that. And, these are things that can kind of get us a little in a bit of a spot later on, because when we haven't listened to that guidance, we might find ourselves further down the path that is, starting to really feel quite icky, or, maybe something else happens that, that doesn't feel right, and then we're getting those even bigger warning signs. And I know, for me, I can think of a time when I was literally being asked to leave a significant relationship, and I kept getting that hit, like, you have to leave, and I was like, really? Oh, I don't know, this feels uncomfortable. And it took a few rounds before I took that step. And I think that's another, clue. If something keeps showing up more than once, or you get the same message, and for me, it was more like a clairaudience message that I was hearing, but we might get the message from someone else, might just say something to us that will be like, oh, okay, getting that message, they're the messenger. Or maybe we hear it in a song, and maybe we hear that same song a few times. So things like that are clues that we just need to, like you said earlier, having that awareness, like, oh, okay, there it is again. Yeah.
That's a great point because that's like something I like songs, numbers because because of galactic numerology, but the numbers show up and I'm like, oh, because they have a certain energy and I'm reminded of it. And oh, sometimes you wake up with a song in your head and there might be certain things. Gosh, I remember I was hearing like a children's Christmas song one time when I was like still living in the house and going through the divorce. And oh, I can't think of the song right now, but it was something so light and fun, like like just to basically like let it go and you're on the right path. And so there's also like all these synchronicities and signs and that type of thing as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and also it might not be a warning sign. It might be a sign of these dreams that we've had. Maybe that's the song. It's like an encouraging and uplifting and inspiring song that might pop into, gently nudge us in that direction. So let's move on to, when we are getting these nudges to make a change. And this is when fear tends to really pop up. So what is the role of fear when we are being called to make a change in our our reality?
So like that is how we really are growing and expanding, how our soul, our that's why we're here. And so when fears show up, it's a flag that something is off and that we're off path. And it's time to correct course or do something different. So it's really, you know, it's fear is not to be feared. It's and because there's also roots, uh, like fear might be the root, but you don't even realize it's a fear because it's coming through a doubt or so it's the fear is coming through in other ways and like doubting and instead of trusting. And
Yeah.
so really I feel like they're flags and that's really how we grow and it's how our soul expands and it's is it necessary it's been the way that we've been operating in this 3D world. Um, and it's not, is it necessary? No, really, it's not necessary from, let's just say from a higher consciousness standpoint, because there's ways to make choices without fear being a part of that choice. So if there is a fear, it's something is it's a flag that something is asking to be changed.
Yeah, and fear comes up because we're being asked to go into an unknown space, and I think as we touched on last week, how if we want to have an adventure of life, we kind of have to go with an unknown script, right? If we knew everything that was going to unfold, it wouldn't really be much of an adventure. And so I often think of it as like when we're going on that roller coaster, it's kind of exhilarating, but at the same time you're kind of got white knuckles, the white knuckle ride.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I think maybe it's a good point to a good time to just pause and just see if anyone would like to type in the chat anything that's coming through for them. Maybe they're experiencing something right now where they're kind of getting those little nudges that something's got to change now. Maybe it's the kind of run out of the energy pattern for a job or a relationship, and maybe we can answer some questions. Or navigate that live to help people now. And if you're catching the replay, then you're welcome to pop in the comments, anything that's coming up for you, and we will be checking and responding. And so while we're just waiting to see if anyone wants to add to the conversation here, I've got a story actually to share about somebody I worked with a few years ago now. And he had this great business idea. He was working in corporate at the time and he had this idea for his own business. And when we started talking, he shared that, this idea had been in his head for maybe 10 years and he hadn't acted on it. So I was like, really enthusiastic to support him to bring this idea out of his head and into his reality. And so, we started working together for a few weeks and started looking at, well, what shifts does he need to make? What people does he need to bring in to support him? What kind of resources does he need? And, we were doing pretty well. We were kind of creating a plan and it was coming out of his head, it was then appearing on paper. So, it was becoming real. And then we set a timeline, when are you going to take this leap of faith and kind of leave the corporate job or reduce your hours, and starting to make that shift. And then what happened is, the fear came up. And and as fear tends to do, brings up all the excuses, all the reasons why it's not the right time, why we maybe haven't got the enough financial support to back us for this big shift, all the excuses. And I mean, that's fine because it's, also we have, we don't want to blindly take a leap of faith if it's, if it is going to cause difficulties. But at the same time, it's, checking in. Are we just being cautious? Or are we really just in that freeze state and we're just too afraid to go into the unknown? And, sadly, I don't know whether he did eventually take that leap of faith or not. But I often wonder, at some point, will he get to, at some point look back and think, oh, I regret not seeing what could have happened. Because I certainly think that, as we go through life, it's not always the things that we did do that we regret and that maybe didn't turn out so well, or, oh, I said that thing and I shouldn't have. We kind of forget those things. What we tend to regret is the things that we didn't do. And we end up having that, oh, I wonder what if, wonder if what would have happened. So yeah, and I always feel like, well, there's never a right time, is there? There's not a right time. The time is always now. And what we've talked about in last week as well is as soon as we just get that little guidance to take a little step, it doesn't have to be, an overwhelming thing that we've got to make all these sudden changes. It's just those little steps. And then once we take that first step, the next bit of the path is revealed. So let's,
Yeah, and yes, and I know we have a question here. Let me just jump in real quick because it's
yeah,
like that, like you said about like regret. Well, regret is also another flag, right? Because it's like why didn't like again, that's kind of going back, why didn't I make a decision then? And so it's almost like it's if it's resurfacing again, that's another flag to look at a decision again. And what was the decision, and what were some of those fears, or some of those doubts, or some of the playing it safe. So that's almost like another way of something resurfacing to go deeper into as well. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Thank you, Denise.
yeah.
Yeah, so someone has written in the chat that um, they're having some fears around perhaps leaving the job and noticing that there's a pattern of like narcissistic abuse in the job environment. And and if it's your boss, that's a difficult one, that if you're having to tolerate or feel like you have to tolerate a situation that perhaps feels abusive. And I mean, we'll probably both advocate never to allow yourself to stay in abusive patterns or relationships, no matter who it is. But at the same time, we recognize how difficult it can be to break those patterns. I don't know if you want to add anything here at this stage, Denise.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's really, again, that is a flag when you're knowing that it's time to move out of something. And absolutely it is like there, if there is any type of whether it's emotional abuse or whatever it is,
Mm.
that is abuse, and that is absolutely not to be tolerated. And it's and if, like, I don't know if you want to come, turn off your or turn on your microphone and add a little bit more to this, um and yet to also um see, like, what is keeping you from leaving that situation, what fears are arising, and to really look at, is it like a fear of how am I going to survive, like from a financial standpoint, or is it a fear of retribution, like he's gonna, okay, yeah. So then when, like, sometimes when there's a razor fear about something, like, for example, well, oh my gosh, if I leave this, how am I going to survive financially? And that's really an ingrained, like, that's a belief system, because there's always, like, when you are feeling something that's coming from your inner self always guides you, and you will not fall on your face. That's so that programming of financial security is programming. It's the mind, it's the emotions, the body. And when you can step out of that and look and say, okay, even if it's just from a practical standpoint, just to begin, because it can be really, really scary. Just like, what can you do? What steps can you take as you leave the job or the position and go, maybe to another job, or look for some support from family or friends, or but there's always like our like we our higher selves, our souls are always, our angels, our guides, they're always looking out for us. So it's stepping out of that fear enough to see that there are solutions, because you're not meant to be in that. We're not meant to suffer in this life to learn our lessons. So it's how it's been for eons of time, here on the earth, and it's how we've been learning. And yet that's not the most optimal way, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, thank you, Denise. And I'll just share, because this is a specialist topic of mine, narcissism and healing from narcissistic abuse. And one of the patterns that I noticed is, it's not, certainly because it's emotional or psychological, it's not always easy to spot in the beginning. And there's also a period of time where you may start to question, am I overreacting? Is this really happening? Because that kind of dynamic has a way of making you question your own intuition or validity. And then, we find ourselves in these cycles because we maybe give someone another chance, or we might say, oh, it's not that bad, or maybe I'm overreacting, all of these kind of things. And I can speak from experience, pop up, and it makes it difficult to shift. And certainly, again, from experience, other people looking in on that may not see that. Certainly, people in those leadership roles are very charismatic, very likable even. And so, it can be difficult to even know where to turn if you feel that that's happening to you. So thank you for sharing that experience. I think it is a hot topic, a hot theme that many of us are working through as a collective, in the dynamics and in the global stage. And I think that leads us, let's talk then, Denise, about the grieving process when we let go of things, because even when we let go of toxic situations, there can be a even in those there can still be a process of sort of grieving that loss, and grieving the version of you that went through that situation, and then made it through to the other side. So, yeah, Denise, maybe you've got some thoughts here.
Yeah, 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 and that's the tough work, isn't it? That grieving and and again, those are flags because what winds up happening, because grief can be debilitating, and so again, it's a flag to take a step out or a step back, allow the emotions to flow, and because it's also a release.
Yeah.
So there's, it's like that energy, you've made a decision, you've taken the action, and now there's like this flood of emotion, and that could be grief, it could be fear, it could be exhilaration, so it could be a good thing, right? But those lower emotions, the slower emotions, are really they're really a cleansing process. And again, they're another flag that maybe there's still something being held on to, that, and you had mentioned that, that comfort zone is, it's what's considered a comfort zone isn't comfortable. It's
No, often we're
it's
unhappy
not.
in the comfort zone, right?
The comfort zone is definitely in the 3D world, right? There's no like there's the there to yeah, it definitely is, because it's more, it's when you're out of all that and you're in like these higher emotions and higher feelings and frequencies and everything, of like when you turn the corner. And that's what our guest was saying last week. She's like, "Oh, I'm really happy now," and she got out of the her relationship and her, all that she went through with her kids. And it's like, on the other side of that is the emotions, the feelings of the higher frequencies, the joy and and such. And so there's a couple of things, like the holding on, the comfort could also be being afraid to be in that happy zone, or not feeling that you deserve to be in the happy zone. And like all that's another whole topic, right? Because the not deserving could come from whatever the relationship is that you're trying to move out of, because you were like told that you don't deserve it, and like all kind of mental, emotional, all that,
Mhm.
all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, and as you were sharing, because the journey is about expansion and soul expansion and really finding out what we're capable of. And so we have to keep stretching and growing to discover that. And, even when we're shifting out of our comfort, our unhappy comfort zone, it can feel uncomfortable, but then, as we start to make these shifts and settle into a new zone, it kind of becomes, we've gone from an older zone and to a new normal, and then it becomes like a new comfort zone, and we might settle there for a bit until we're getting that call again to expand and stretch our wings again. And
Yeah.
I think, and also just touching back on what the participant brought through is, all of these kind of situations and dynamics that we find with other people, really it's, whether we label it or not as a disorder or dysfunctional pattern, it's really all of us kind of just working through our unconscious aspects of ourselves and really shine, having the courage to shine a light on that and making it conscious so that we can then integrate these things. And it's probably a topic for another day, but a lot of this is picked up through, just how we're brought up. And, maybe it's just been a cycle, a pattern that's been passed down through the generations. And until we get to one of us that recognizes that it's an unhealthy pattern and makes the decision to do the inner work and create the shift so that it kind of ends that pattern from repeating in the family. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And what keeps coming is they want me to bring in willing. Like when you're willing to make a change, that is such a huge step that I think a lot of people don't give themselves permission, like give themselves permission to be willing to change. Because once you give yourself permission to be willing to change, because nobody else can give you permission.
Hmm.
Nobody else can give you permission. It's within us. And then once we give ourselves that permission to step out of something that is very, it could be subtle or it could be really chunky, like a narcissistic boss or whatever it is, and just be willing to step to take action to step out of that, and then finding whatever support systems, because there's always support. There's always support. So, and it's looking for that, and we're not expected to do anything on our own. We're never alone. There's always people. There's guides. There's spirit guides, and so it's just that willingness wanted to really come forward.
And I love that because, like you say, just having that willingness, already we're creating a new energy pattern. We might not see it, but by having that intention, something is already shifting. And then we just have to follow on that. And again, it's like, if life isn't flowing, it's because the energy in our body's not fully flowing, so we can start to create shifts to unblock those, as we said right at the beginning, those, what did you call it, the holding on in the body,
Yeah,
body
tension.
start,
Yeah,
yeah, start to get that flowing again, and then we're able to flow with life with much more ease and grace. So
yeah,
let's, I think what you were just sharing as well made me think about, again, it's like noticing, who are we keeping company with? If we want that support in our life, are we hanging out with people that aren't really supporting our growth and potential? Are they holding us back? Are they keeping us sort of playing small and stunting our growth? And I think that's a really key one. And I don't know, I'm sure there's a quote somewhere about, if you want to be successful, surround yourself with the people that you aspire to be like, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of times like that can either come from like somebody else um kind of squelching like whatever your aspirations are. That could be coming from, well, it's definitely coming from their head, from their fears, right? From their ego. It's not because somebody who is is really happy to support you, they're coming from their heart. So that is also, like you said, the look out for those relationships, who is supporting and who's not supporting. And that brings up such a great point, because this is happening in my life. I know you and I have talked about it. It's happening in your life. It's happening in both of our clients' lives. Like, there people start moving out of our lives because they just don't they are choosing to just stay where they're at and stay stuck. And even if it's a long-term relationship, and again, there's that comfort zone, there's just starts to be like the conversations aren't flowing and it just doesn't feel good, and there's negativity or whatever. And
Mm.
it's okay, because as soon as we release something, whether it's a relationship or holding on to, a blanket that your great aunt gave you because somebody told you that you needed to keep it because it was from your great aunt, and it was like from the 18. No, it's like, if you never felt comfortable with that and never liked the energy of it because maybe your great aunt had some not such good energy and it was on her blood. Like, it's like, just to see and to know that that's growth, and that's good. That's good that that's happening. So there's no, it's kind of like that whole, like, society said, a husband and a wife and 2.5 kids and a dog, like the perfect family. No, there's no perfect family.
Right.
That's a belief system that then, people aspire to, and then if it doesn't resonate with them, then there's all kind of stuff that comes up about that. So
Yeah. No, thank you. And also recognizing that, the more we release, that, the freedom that comes with that, we start to feel more free. We're not stuck in these kind of victim persecutor cycles. We're not stuck in our feeling helpless and hopeless. We start to, we feel more free because we're able to stretch and spread our wings a bit more. And, the more we release, we're inviting, we're opening up that space, inviting space for new opportunities to come in. And of course, if there's no room for them to come into our life, then it's going to take a little bit longer because we need to have that space to allow the new job or the relationship or the friendships to come in. And I'll just add that, if we are finding ourselves in difficult situations with people that maybe don't feel safe, you know, before taking any hasty action, make sure you do have some support or a little strategy in place because, it might require you to just take a few little steps to kind of exit stage left. Um, so yeah,
yeah.
just add
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. And especially if it's a safety issue, a physical safety issue, or emotional safety issue, any of that, mental, it could be any of those, that absolutely taking the finding the support systems
Yeah.
um, is so important. And then all of a sudden you have assistance and you have guidance and all of that as well.
Yeah, and often that's not always people that we know. We might need that from an external source that can
Yes,
see a situation objectively and be there solely to support you, where there's no other kind of conflict of interest. Um, yeah.
yeah. Good point. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's like sometimes the fear can be, because you had said something that sparked this as well, is sometimes that fear can be, it can be freezing or debilitating or whatever, or and yet it's coming up for a reason. Like, just this is all we've been talking about. Like, there's definitely flags that something is not right with our own inner truth, our inner path. And so, it's just so important to also tap within, like to go within and to that's really important to learn how to tap into your own inner guidance and to get more in touch with the your internal so that you can learn how to follow those cues
Mm.
um, because then it's also a quicker way to get to the happy bits, to get to the other side, let's say, because it really it can even crunch timelines. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the energy. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right, because the more we get in touch with our body and being fully present in and embodied, then we start to recognize what how our body talks to us, how our body communicates and gives us, or how our soul communicates through our body to give us those signs and nudges. And as we touched on earlier, maybe it comes in the sound of that clairaudience, or maybe we hear a song on the radio, or someone that we're talking to happens to say something that really, catches our attention. So it's just starting to recognize those little hits as you were sharing, and then we start to recognize our personal navigation system. Love it. So,
Beautiful.
as we come to a close for today, Denise, is there anything further you would like to share, or any closing comments?
Yeah, I'm just like I love that all of this has come through and just for everyone to know that there is we're all on our path. We're all on our path. That's why we're here. And we volunteered to be here and I remember many times thinking to myself, what? I volunteered to be here. But it is a part of that growth. And to know that even if something like this growth is challenging and is uncomfortable, that going through it gets easier because you are raising your frequency and you're really able to move through. It's not going to be there's so much light coming in and are, like you said, making more space for new relationships, new experiences, all that. Like as the light is coming in, it's also releasing all this density, whether it's through emotions, physical, mental,
Mm.
and as the like just getting the guidance, if you can tap in from yourself or getting coaching on that or mentoring, like that's just so important because it it does get easier. It does get easier. I say that from personal experience and from my clients' experience as well. It does like it the dots get connected a lot easier and a lot quicker. So yeah.
Yeah, and we end up, because we're raising our consciousness, we end up being able to see with fresh eyes, new perspectives, and we might get those little ahas like, oh, okay. In some ways, I needed to go through what I did in order to get here and get this new wisdom and clarity, and soul expansion. So beautiful. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you, Victoria.
Oh, we hope that you feel empowered, or more empowered, to face the fear of letting go. And as Denise was sharing, remember that releasing the old is not about loss or losing something or leaving something behind. It's really about making that room for growth and expansion, as we've shared. And recognizing that fear is a natural part of the process, but it doesn't have to control our decisions. And so the more we can trust ourselves and go with the flow of life, we allow these new opportunities and experiences to emerge. And so letting go is the beginning of this transformation. And with every release, we're one step closer to our highest potential. And so if you would like additional support or would like to connect with us and go deeper, you can find out more about the lovely Denise at www.divinecosmicalchemy.com. And you can find out more about me at www.theconsciouscreationcoach.com. So thank you, Denise, for joining me and everyone today.
Thank you, Victoria, and thank you everyone who's here today and who's tuning in. Thank you, and just thank you for all you're going through, because you are growing and it's making the world a better place. Yeah.
Absolutely lovely. I love that you shared that. Thank you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. And I'm really looking forward to our next conversation next week. So we look forward to seeing you then.
Yep. Join us live if you can.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone. Bye.